Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. It is Wednesday, May 5th, 2021. I am Andrew Hansen alongside Joe Sarvati, affectionately known as Coach. And here's the exciting thing, Coach. On this slate tonight, 9-game NBA slate, we have Phoenix and Cleveland playing, but they're not playing
Yeah.
each other. So we don't have to worry about that surprise overtime game we got last night.
Good Lord. Nothing like going 50 points over the line. Jeez. That was nuts.
That was surprising. You know, a game that was lower total. Both teams were on the front end of a back-to-back, and then it goes to overtime, and it kind of broke the slate a little bit.
It did.
I was going to save this for later, but I can't wait. Mikal Bridges, in overtime, Mikal Bridges put up 19.7 fantasy points. It was block,
Unbelievable.
steal, offensive rebound, assist, three. He did everything. It was like Bugs Bunny baseball, where he was playing every position, going nuts.
Crazy.
And that's why we talk about these totals, close spreads, high totals, games that might go to overtime,
Yep.
and they do go to overtime. We confirmed the research before the show. 6.2% of NBA games go to overtime. So basically, every other night you're going to have a game that does, and
Right.
we want to be on it with big exposure to it. That's the prime time opportunity if you're going to stack a game a little bit more heavily. Five guys maybe, and you get overtime, and then you can take things down. So that's a prime example of why we zero in on the totals and the spreads every day. I just wasn't expecting it from that particular game.
Yeah, it is, and you're right. I mean, that's why we do really hone in on those areas, and they're very important. But there are going to be some crazy variance things that happen like that. And, the only people like, I think I put in Discord last night. I mean, if you stack that game like up and down, either it's the only two ways you could do that are one, you have no idea what you're doing or you're drunk, or the second one, you're just playing, a ton of amount of contests, max loading, 150 bunch of entries, and you're just letting the variance of numbers and mathematics pick lineups because nobody in their right mind would stack that game and expect it to win. So, it's going to happen. There's not going to be a whole lot of people on that. It does throw you off your game when it does though, because you just don't see it coming, and it shuffles the deck. But we're going to have those. It's part of the fun of DFS is, we get to flush those down the commode and then start fresh the next day, and we are. So I think this slate today is going to be terrific. And here, by the way, happy Cinco de Mayo, today.
Yes,
So
fives are wild.
I'm just saying there may not be coffee in this mug today.
Yeah, it is early though still. So we're gonna.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere. You know that line.
That is true. That is true. Now today, Coach, on this 9-game slate, where 8 of the 18 teams are involved in a back-to-back, we do have 3 high totals over 230, and one of them is over 240. So
Yeah.
we may zero in on those games a little bit for potential overtime, and we're going to do so in the context of building a 2 brains are better than 1 lineup.
How
If you're
about
new to
that?
the show, we usually do that on Wednesdays. We build it on FanDuel. It's a GPP lineup that you can plug in and play. So we're going to build through each game on the slate and then build that at the end of the show. So stick with us for that, of course. But the first game we have a solo game at 7 o'clock. You want to kick us off with that one?
Absolutely. It's the Boston Celtics at the Orlando Magic. Boston is a 9-point favorite. The total's only 218. So baby total in this first game. It's the second lowest on the entire slate. And you've got some definite news here. Thompson for Boston is out, and Jaylen Brown, he got dinged up in that, uh, this big collision he had with Tatum. That was really weird. I don't think I've ever seen 2 stars from one team collide and both get hurt like that.
In
That
like
was
the final
weird.
5, last minute of the game, it was unfortunate, fluky.
Yeah. As the coach, you see that and you want to pass out. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like, did that just happen?
Well,
But
yeah, the Coach Stevens was right there next to the play. He
I
went
know.
immediately to check on him. He was right in front of him, so that was not enjoyable. But with the injuries, do you have Thompson out? I have him as questionable.
I have Thompson and Brown as I do have Thompson as doubtful.
Doubtful. Okay.
So, it could be, the rookies season here, time to step up and play the youngster possibly. But
Yep.
let's see what that news final is. But Jalen's definitely out, that's for sure. And on the Orlando side, they have their usual suspects out: Ennis, MCW, Okiki, Porter, and Ross, all sitting. So, not a great game from the stance of the over-under, the pace, where they're 19th and 20th. Defensively, not good, 15th and 25th, but slow pace, a lot of guys out. How does that affect this game? Is it a key game? Orlando has really not played well. Boston a little short-handed, but they should be able to handle Orlando, you would think. Mo Wagner, they've moved his price up some now, but he's the new recipient of minutes. If you trust those, Cole Anthony's had some good games, but hard to target this game on a gigantic nine game slate. And then from the Boston side, with Kemba back in, it sort of replaces a big chunk of that usage that obviously with Jalen out, that has to be absorbed, and most of it will go right to Kemba. So, I really am not thrilled about this game. I think that possibly Robert Williams, if Thompson is ruled out for sure and Williams plays, starts, I think you can look at him because Carter's not a great defender. They will bring the big fella in there, Bamba, but Williams will be in consideration for me. His price is decent, but not crazy about this game, Andrew.
Yeah, just a value play potentially for me. Robert Williams, definitely a consideration if Thompson's out. We do have the competing revenge narratives here. We've got Evan Fournier trotting back to Orlando with
How about that?
a group around him that's a little more talented than the group that he left. So he's going to be feeling good in his old spot there. Decent price, and should be starting with Jaylen Brown out. And then you mentioned Mo Wagner, and how about those minutes? 41 minutes in the last game.
Unbelievable.
So they are giving him a look, and he's playing against Boston, who he was a part of for a short time this season. So interesting scenario there. And then RJ Hampton, got to mention him. He's really stepping up with guys like MCW out. 35 minutes last game was tremendous. So his price has gone up, though. So keep that in mind. So, yeah, maybe a
he
one-off.
He can play.
Yep.
I've mentioned it before. We played against him. He's from Dallas here in the AAU ball, and he was terrific, man. RJ Hampton, just terrific.
Yep.
I had a feeling he was going to develop into a player. I think that was a great pickup for them.
He's making a statement to really be in that rotation long term.
No doubt. So it's a tempting game, and certainly one you can dabble in GPPs. We may see that in a little bit of the two brains lineup. You never know.
It just may pop up. Stay tuned for that. Game 2, Coach. We've got Portland and Cleveland. It's the only 7:30 game. Portland favored by 11, 227.5 total. Island game for Portland. Injury news there. Powell is questionable. Lillard probable. And on the Cleveland side, on this back-to-back, Garland still questionable with the ankle. Hartenstein questionable at best. And then all the usual suspects still out for Cleveland.
Yeah. Now, you saw Verichow is probable.
Yeah, so he after we talked about him on the show, it was announced that he was not ready to make his debut yesterday. We'll see if he gets in there today.
I still can't get over that.
Yep, he's back. Now, with these Portland guards, they're tempting. We saw what the Phoenix guards did to Cleveland, not surprising. The question is this one a blowout? Does Cleveland keep it close again? Their prices are sort of tracking more like you would expect, with Lillard 14 to 1500 more than CJ. So you could go with either of those guys. Not my first choice here because of the potential blowout. Nurkic is in the mix for me. His price has dipped back down into the 6K range. So he's probably my favorite play on the Portland side. and I don't think I'm interested in anybody on Cleveland. It's a great matchup. Portland's 29th, but it's a back-to-back. Sexton's price is in the 8K range. Okoro was awesome yesterday, but I'm just not a huge fan of him offensively. The thing that
No.
changed was 6 assists for him. I mean, he also had 32 points, which was very surprising, and it was an overtime game, of course. But if you look at his numbers on the season, 43%, 29% on threes. He just hasn't been an efficient scorer.
No.
So that really came out of nowhere. And he'll have increased usage again if Garland is out, but I'm not planning to go there. So I'm more interested in maybe a Portland guy here.
Yeah, you talk about the ultimate trap guy in the history of the NBA. It's playing Okoro tonight. I mean, he couldn't score in college. He's a great defender. He's going to be a nice ball player, but he's not a scorer. And the fact that he did that against the second best team with defensive efficiency in the Suns, still shocking. But I don't see that. I mean, you talk about regression. I mean, you got to be kidding me. So not going to go there. Hopefully no one falls to that trap. But the thing that I want to know, Andrew, is Garland. I mean, if he's out, I don't mind paying $8,000 for Sexton because he's going to take a billion shots. Lillard and McCollum do not defend well. This game will be, a good enough pace that they should be able to get a decent amount of shots up. So, if he's out, I'm going to consider Sexton. And, I really do want to consider Lillard or McCollum here. Either one of them, I think, are solid plays. But it doesn't feel like after what happened yesterday, all of a sudden this game's going to be like 100-96 or something. It's just one of those concerns I have, and there's so many good games. It's hard to pay up, in that spot. But for me, it would just be the guards I'm interested in Sexton and either Lillard or McCollum. Too much shifting of the bigs and guys that are going to be in and out for both Portland and Cleveland that I'm not interested to go there. So it's going to be news dependent for me. And if I can fit a McCollum salary or Lillard salary in, I will. But it could be important. I could be a Lillard Sexton correlation play if Garland's ruled out. So that's the big decision I have to make.
All right, we got 5 games at 8 o'clock.
Yes, the first one, Phoenix, Atlanta, correct?
Correct.
Atlanta on the first night of a back-to-back, Phoenix on the second night of it, we just say, where Chris Paul broke the slate with his buddies, Bridges and all his friends there. And it is a pick'em, which makes it very interesting. And I have it at 228.5. So, how are they going to treat this game, Phoenix, on a back-to-back? Monty doesn't really drive his players too hard, but, they're trying to get that first seed, and they're going to keep trying to push through some of these lesser teams. And, it is a little bit of concern that they played an overtime game last night, because they did play their main guys quite a bit. But right now, Crowder is questionable. Nader's still out. For Atlanta, most of their guys are playing. Hunter and Reddish are still out for long term. But here's the problem I have with this game, but I said the same thing yesterday. It's 26th and 23rd in pace, very similar to the game Phoenix played with Cleveland yesterday as far as that goes. Phoenix is actually 6th in defensive efficiency, and Atlanta 21st. So, it's one of those scenarios here where I just don't feel like I want to go back to the Phoenix guys and chase the points from last night. I think Paul, exceptional game, and it's Trae Young, so he could smash it again. But just not sure. Not sure if that's the spot to go. And it was Phoenix. Did I say Phoenix against Cleveland? It was Phoenix OKC last night, by the way.
No, it's Phoenix Cleveland. You had it right.
Or was
the
it
first time.
Cleveland? Yeah, okay. I got myself confused.
I know.
OKC was.
It seemed like a nightmare. I know you're trying to push it away.
Yeah, I blocked it out already. Yeah. But yeah, I'm not going to chase the points. I don't think it's necessary. I really don't. I know it's a pick'em game though, so it is very tempting. Mikal Bridges is probably going to get some Tony Snell defense to calm him down a little bit. Chris Paul, of course, is probably a good play against Trae Young. I'll say it, but I don't want to spend up for him in this spot, to be honest with you. Bogdanovich should be in there, and he and Booker should be trading quite a few buckets. They're both expensive, and they're both playable. After that, not really crazy about the bigs here, because Collins, Capella, even Ayton are a little pricey for me on a big slate like this. So, I'll consider Bogdanovich and Booker as the two go-to guys. And I think you're going to see a lot of people with Paul. I think they'll go right back to him, but I'm not going to go there.
Yeah, don't love this game. I like some other point guards better than Chris Paul tonight. So I think I'm going to fade it probably completely.
Okay.
Just want to point out that John Collins only played 19 minutes in the last game.
Yeah, what's that all about?
Gallinari got hot, finally played big minutes. He'd been throwing up just dud after dud. But he went 28-8. He's playable for me, cheap one-off. But that's it. I'm really not looking at this game much because of the back-to-back for Phoenix.
A lot of chances for duds, I think, in that game.
Yep. All right. Well, I don't think we're going to have as many duds in the next one. I'm excited about Sacramento and Indiana. 239 total. Indiana favored by 5.5. Pace here, 5th and 9th. We have Sacramento's last-ranked defense again, and solid offensive teams here. We are missing Fox still and Halliburton, so that hurts Sacramento. We also have Barnes doubtful and Metu questionable. On the Indiana side, we still have question marks for Brogdon, Sumner, Lamb, and Goga. Okay. So let's assume that all those players are out. Then
do you have Fox listed as out?
I have him as, I think there's maybe a question mark next to him, but
I have him as questionable, and that's a key to the game.
Oh, it is, but it hasn't been 14 days since he went onto the COVID list. I guess there's some flexibility there, but I think he's doubtful at best.
Okay.
But, it's possible. Definitely, it's not 100% out.
Right.
So that'll change things for sure. But if those guys are out, then I will go back to DeLon Wright, Terrence Davis, key guys from yesterday that smashed. They're still really good prices on both sites. Not as excited about Hield or Bagley in this one on this slate. Hield's been priced up a little bit. He actually did all right in terms of his final numbers yesterday. He was inefficient with Dort, 5 for 16, but 11 rebounds. We were talking about that in main chat. Buddy got after it on the boards.
He did.
And Bagley got his minutes and his shots, but he was 5 for 15. And I did play him. It was painful to watch. He had one of those games where he had a 3-pointer that hit the rim like 12 times and then fell off. I mean, it was just a hair off. But I'm really interested in the Sacramento guards. And then on Indiana, I'm ready to bring it back with a couple guys here. If Brogdon and Sumner are out, I'll go to LeVert for sure. He's a lock for me. Sabonis, I'll play again. He's been dominant. And, the thing to keep in mind with these Indiana games, Coach, they've in their last 5 games, at least one of the teams has scored 130 points. Their pace just continues to get faster and faster.
It does.
I mean, their last 2 games, they've scored 293 points themselves.
Jeez.
So they're getting up and down, they're scoring it, and they're not really defending that well. They just gave up 154 to Washington. So Sacramento, if they don't have Fox, they're not going to probably score 140 because they just don't have that offensive firepower, not as much pace. But I do like this to get up and down and be a key game.
Yeah, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this game because I need the news. I mean, there's just way too much news in this game that it totally affects the slate for me. So, and correct me if I'm wrong here. I've got Lamb, Goga, Sumner, Brogdon, all those guys questionable.
Yep.
And then I'm confused now on Fox if he's possibly going to play or not, and Barnes questionable. I mean, all key guys on both sides that completely shuffle the deck. Now, I agree with you. I love the pace of this game. They're both trending on real high scoring games. Their defense, Sacramento can't get worse. They're the worst, 30th, but Indiana's been playing much more high tempo with Sumner in there, and they just seem to have changed their entire pace of play. But again, he's questionable. So once I get the news here, I'm definitely going to have 2 or 3 guys from this game strategically. It may end up being, DeLon Wright, Karis LeVert. It could be Sabonis. But if there's a shuffling, and we have guys playing without minutes restrictions that are back, if it happens to be Fox or Sumner or whomever is factored in, that's going to change my ownership. But I'm not going to be fading this game. I can tell you that. I think you need exposure here. And once the news drops, I'll have a much better idea of which direction I want to go. So let me use this time, since we're almost halfway through here anyway. Great time to sign up with us at DFS Coach Talk on Twitter. You can get all our information there. But if you want to sign up, you go to dfscoachtalk.com. We have all kinds of membership offers. And remember, whatever membership you get with Coach Talk, you get everything we've got. All of our content, all of our podcasts, our big meetings every Saturday where we talk about things like bankroll management, contest selection, and you get all our sports. You don't have to purchase each sport separately like with a lot of providers. You get everything that we've got. So you'll get all our baseball lineups, basketball, golf, which we put out today as well with the tournament starting tomorrow. And you can get as little as a 3-day for $10 to try us out. So no better time to do it with all of these sports going on at the same time, and we would love to have you. So one other thing I want to ask also is, if you're watching this on YouTube, please take a second, hit the thumbs up, really hit that subscribe button. We still have less than a third of our consistent viewers each day subscribe. And if you do that, it really helps us. It moves us up in the algorithm on YouTube, so we can get more people to see, our podcasts. And then on top of that, hit that little alert button at the top corner. This way, as soon as our podcasts post, you'll be alerted. You could check them out, or you at least know that they're up for whenever it's convenient for you to listen. And if you just are on our audio podcast, which we're everywhere, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, iHeart, you name it, we are there. We do check those, and we go through periodically and hand out some weekly passes to Coach Talk for those that put 5 stars up and a quick comment. And we will surprise some of those folks and shoot them a tweet and let them come aboard for free for a period. So we really appreciate that, and we'd love to have you involved. And then then you don't have to guess, because I feel bad, like with this Sacramento Indiana game, that our listeners, I can't say these are the guys I really, really like, or these are the guys I'm going to fade, because I don't know who's in and out yet. And the only way you can follow that with us is being in our Discord. We're in there. Everybody, our community's watching all the news constantly. Andrew and I were just talking about before the podcast. I've got information in one ear listening to different things. We have all the things posting on Twitter and all the feeds, so that we know as soon as there's a change in lineups, because that, one guy makes the big difference. One snowflake on that DraftKings card can sink you. It is competitive, and we want to get every edge. So join us at DFS Coach Talk. We would love to have you. So that's my take on the Sacramento Indiana game. Let's go on to another 8 o'clock game, and that would be Philadelphia and Houston. Philadelphia favored by 14.5. Houston is over/under is 224.5. Korkmaz out for Philly. Wilson, Brown, Gordon, Nawab out for Houston. House doubtful, Augustine questionable. So Houston, we know, is packed it in. They're rotating some guys around, giving guys days off, not pushing the guys that are hurt. Philly's still, wanting to get that first seed. Really, other than Korkmaz, I expect their regular rotation. It's an island game for both teams. The one issue here is you've got two decent. You've got Philly with the second best defense, which is a concern, but they both have a decent pace, 11th and 6th. So they're going to get up and down more than you would think. The question is, and the $1 million question is, can Houston keep it close enough? I like the game if it stays close. I hate the game if it's a blowout. So, people that say, well, you can't predict blowouts. Well, if you don't consider that in your picks, you're making a big mistake because, if you thought this game was going to go down to the wire, this is a game you'd want to stack. But I don't think it's going to go down to the wire. I think Houston has completely mailed it in. I think that you're gonna see a 20-point lead in the first half by Philly in my projections, and so that scares me off of a lot of guys here because do you want to spend huge bucks for Simmons, Harris, Embiid? I don't see it happening. What I will say though on the Houston side is some of these guys are somewhat blowout proof. I think Porter's going to get run anyway. Tate's going to get run anyway. And, Olynyk's been getting plenty of run regardless. The guys they seem to take a little more care of are like Bradley. Christian Wood doesn't always get pushed in blowouts either because he's been on and off with injuries. So I actually am thinking of a one-off on the Portland or Houston side with possibly Porter or Tate, but probably not going to go anywhere on Philadelphia just because I think this game blows out.
Yeah, pretty similar for me. On the Philly side, there's a couple prices on DraftKings that I think are okay. Seth Curry at 4,000, he's been playing well. Tobias Harris 6,800 is playable. He's right on the verge, coach, of a 50-40-90 season. He's right now he's 52, 40, 89. So if he hits a couple free throws down the stretch, he'll get there. The problem is he doesn't always get the volume offensively, and everybody is out there other than Korkmaz. So, not really fired up about anybody on Philly. And Houston, tough matchup. Prices are up a little bit. So maybe a GPP with Porter or Jay Sean. But the only price tag that's a little bit attractive to me really is KJ Martin off the bench on DraftKings at 3,900. He's really the only reliable kind of hustle energy forward guy off the bench with DJ Wilson out. So that's a possible one-off. But yeah, just not fired up about this game. I like the other 8 o'clock games better. So let's go to the next one. It's Washington and Milwaukee.
You got both home runs today.
Seriously,
how is that?
What are the chances? Yeah, usually doesn't happen that way. But
no.
I'll take it. I'll take number 1 and number 3 in pace with the Wizards and Bucks. Of course, it is a back-to-back for Milwaukee and a front end for Washington. But 242 total. Milwaukee favored by 6. And these teams put it up, not surprisingly, when they play each other. They put up 244 and then 255 in their two matchups.
Jeez.
Westbrook he's averaged almost 70 fantasy points against these guys. One of the games Beal did not play, but in the second one, Russ just decided to throw in 17 assists. So he finds a way to get it done if Beal is out there or not.
Unbelievable. Did you see the stat on him today, Westbrook?
Which one?
If he had 0.0 rebounds and 0 assists for the rest of the season, these last 10 games, he'd still average a triple-double.
Insanity, no doubt about it.
It doesn't seem possible.
Coming off a historic night with 21 rebounds and 24 assists.
I've never seen it. I've watched a lot of basketball. So is he going to make your team tonight?
He's a leading candidate to be out there.
It's hard to fade him.
Yep.
But Drew is tough defensively.
Yeah, he is. But, he's gotten it done against him. And so all these possessions, it is a back-to-back, so you might not get quite as many minutes from Holiday and the rest of that group. They played 36, 37 minutes yesterday, the key guys. I wouldn't be surprised if it's more like 33. We know that Budenholzer is pretty conservative on back-to-backs.
He's very conservative for sure.
The flip side of that is 33 minutes for those guys with all these possessions is enough for them to potentially still hit value. So you could look at Drew or Middleton or Giannis on the other side. Giannis has gotten a triple-double in both games against these guys. and filling it out with some of the cheaper guys. Rui has had very good games against these guys both times,
Yeah.
despite the strong defense, and he's still cheap on both sites.
What is it about Rui that DFS hates? Why is he priced so low all the time?
Well, because he had so many duds there for a while that it just the algorithms pushed him down, and
It's
now
crazy.
they're back on the upswing, but they're just taking their time. They want
Yeah.
him to prove it, just like we want him to prove it to us. But he's the last few games, I do like his production.
Gets the minutes
Yeah,
too.
so he's squarely in the mix for me. On the Milwaukee side, Dante DiVincenzo, also kind of interesting. It was a way to get some exposure to this game. He is in a crowded shooting guard position on FanDuel for me, so he's not my favorite play, but he was like healed last night. He got double-digit rebounds from that guard position.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Westbrook for me, maybe Rui, and then maybe one guy on the other side. What's your take on this one?
This is tough, man. I think Westbrook is playing at a level. I remember 2 years ago, I felt this way about Harden, where he was basically unfadable. I mean, you just didn't see an optimal lineup that didn't have him in it at that time, and it's sort of the same way with Westbrook right now. His price, as high as it is still too low though when you look at what he produces. And the last time he's had under 50 or 60 fantasy points is it's like 16 out of 17 games, something totally impossible. So, it is Milwaukee, and they do play decent defense, and I do respect Drew's D, but, they play fast, and that's really all that Westbrook needs. The only team, I think there's maybe one or two teams that I'd be a little hesitant, maybe the Knicks, teams that really chew the clock and you just eliminate some of his possessions. But Milwaukee plays fast. So I don't see how you fade Westbrook. I think he's just at this point, he's just a plug and play, even at that price, which is crazy to say, but I don't see how you can fade him. Um, I don't think I'm going to be able to go with Giannis on the other side. I know that that's what almost everybody is going to do, but I just, if you do that, you are cash strapped, and now you're talking about major stars and scrubs, and really having to find some low value plays. I'd almost rather go the next flight down and be able to get a Hashimura or Holiday or Middleton, guys that are still key players. But, to put Beal or Giannis in there with Westbrook, it's just too salary prohibitive for me. So I'm going to build a team with Westbrook and probably two other people from this game that aren't those big expensive guys that I think can still get in the flow of the play here and get the numbers that are going to be available. So I love the game, of course. Not going to overstack it, but we'll have some key plays. And the two games that are over 240, you just can't fade them. I mean, you got to have some exposure, and it has to be a decent amount, because it's like, those two games are like 5 quarters compared to the way the pace of some of these other games are going to play. So, and we have some of those duds coming up. But yeah, it's going to be fun. I can't wait to see the game and how it plays out. But I'm just slightly concerned about the point you made with Coach Bud. He does not like to push his guys on back-to-backs. And, that's the one main reason I don't want to go with Giannis. But, I am going against myself with a Holiday Middleton consideration under those circumstances. But I think Holiday has to stay out there, because after that, they really don't have anybody to guard Westbrook. So, hopefully Holiday bumpers up and is able to get the big minutes, even though it's a back-to-back. All right, I'm ready to move on to the next game. It is the last 8 o'clock game, and it's Memphis and Minnesota. Memphis on the first night of a back-to-back. It is Memphis favored by 4.5. This is no chump change either, 235.5. And I think this game is super ripe for big bombs to come in. And, I don't think it's much behind the two games that are 240. I mean, we've only got one key guy out for each team. Triple J, doing the every other game, he's out, and Beasley's been out a long time. So you've got some bombs away guys here that you could build around. And I'll tell you, if you want to pivot off of the dead ass chalk like Westbrook and Giannis and the other big names coming out of these high paced games, there's a bunch of candidates here. I think Ja could have a great game. Rubio's defense is a little shaky, and Edwards and some of the guys that will be in there. D'Angelo Russell's not a great defender either. He's very playable. In an up-tempo game like this, Brooks usually throws some big numbers on the board. Joe Val should get some extra run against Cat. He's playable. Kyle Anderson's had some terrific games at a fairly, mid-level price. Anthony Edwards can blow up at any time. But, my concern is, and this is my question to you, I think Brooks will start out on Edwards because they're bringing D'Angelo. They've been bringing him off the bench and starting Rubio. So I am afraid of Brooks' defense. But here's my question, Andrew, and hopefully you have the answer. Is Brooks going to switch to D'Angelo Russell when he comes in the game, or stick with Edwards?
That's a good question. I hadn't thought through who was going to guard D'Angelo when he comes off the bench. I was just focusing on the fact that I do think Brooks will guard Edwards. So
Yeah,
I
because my theory, not to interrupt you, but I took you totally off guard there. I think Ja tries to guard D'Angelo.
yeah,
That's my thought.
that could happen.
Because that puts D'Angelo highly in play for me here.
Yeah, the bottom line is I just don't think that Brooks, his primary assignment is going to be D'Angelo. So I like his matchup a lot better than Edwards. They could go with Melton or Winslow
Right.
against him. But I much prefer D'Angelo tonight over
Yep.
Edwards.
And that's my theory there too. I mean, they're both explosive players for sure. Cat's going to get lost in the shuffle today with all those big name guys and all the salary that everybody's spending. I don't think anybody's hardly going to play Cat, and he's super dangerous. He's been putting up some of his best numbers of his career recently. He's been terrific, but I'm going to be like everybody else, probably not be able to afford that. But I want exposure in this game. Definitely one from each side. Right now I'm leaning towards Ja and D'Angelo, but there's multiple guys in this game that I think are playable. And remember, pace, they're 8th and 4th. I mean, that's terrific. And we know Minnesota's struggles defensively, 28th. So just those criteria right there, on a lot of cards, this would be our main game. And it ends up coming in, sort of a forgotten third. But I think it's a terrific game that shouldn't be overlooked.
Yeah, I think you could go with Brooks, Kyle Anderson, Joe Val. They're all interesting to me. I don't love the fact that it's a front end for Memphis. That could cause a little bit of trouble, but really great pace game and bad defense for Minnesota. And then with the Timberwolves, like I said, I like Russell over Edwards. Rubio is crazy cheap on DraftKings. He's had two really strong games in a row.
Yeah.
He and Russell are playing alongside each other for a handful of minutes, so they're both in the mix for me. And that's about it. I'm definitely going to focus on the Memphis guys on this side primarily. But the other thing is Minnesota. They have been off since Saturday,
I
so
know. How
a
weird is that?
strange scheduling quirk where they are
Mm-hmm.
really rested up for this one.
Yeah.
So it gives me a little more interest in Rubio and Russell.
Very nice. Good luck with this next game, by the way.
Yeah, thanks a lot. New York and Denver, pace of 30th and 27th, kicking off the after-hours slate with a bang.
Good
213
Lord.
and a half total. Denver favored by 4. It is an island game for both teams. Big news with New York. Noel and Pell are both questionable, so it could be
Yeah.
another Taj Gibson night. And then with Denver, Dozier, Barton, Morris out.
Yeah, the
And
Dozier injury still hurts.
yeah, it
That
hurts.
killed me the other day.
It hurts
Yeah,
all across the Midwest and down to the Southwest there.
it's definitely.
Jokic probable with a toe.
Yeah, what's that all about? That's interesting.
Yeah, I think he's played every game this year, so that is
Yeah,
big news to have any sort of tag next to
he's
Jokic.
never tagged. Yeah,
Maybe he doesn't want to deal with New York's pace and defense.
yeah,
No,
that's not going to be fun.
don't worry, Joe Stan. I'm just kidding. Jokic is the MVP. He has a great mentality. Don't worry. So
Snoozer game. Only Joe's going to be the only fan watching that
he's the
game,
only
by
one
the
watching this on the main slate.
way.
We'll have to deal with it on the after hours. But on the
Oh
main
my
slate,
goodness.
it's probably Taj Gibson or pass for me on New York. With Denver, this is an opportunity for the guards. Campazzo, of course, just locked up that point guard spot, doing well. Austin Rivers, probably the guy that's going to step up in my book.
Crazy.
He played 33 minutes in that last game when Dozier left a little bit early. Didn't do much. He really has not been very efficient offensively or reliable, but he's really cheap, so you could play him. And then if something happens with Jokic and he's out, then obviously you got to look at Gordon, Millsap, JaMychal Green. They've been kind of mixing up the minutes a little bit based on the matchup. Millsap didn't play the last game. They had JaVale McGee out there against the Lakers. But I think with a smaller New York front line, if Noel is out, then I think you will see Millsap in this one. And then Gordon, he will definitely be in play for me if Jokic is out. He has to do more, right, Coach?
I
You
don't
can
know.
lock it
I
in,
got to
right? He
see it.
has to do more.
It's to the point where you got to see it to believe it, you know?
True. Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Not as interested in Shaquille Harrison, so probably a one-off value here at the most.
Well, I'm going to save some time and catch us up to build this lineup. I hate this game. I don't even want I don't care if Noel and every center that's played for the Knicks for the last 35 years is out. I'm not playing Taj Gibson tonight. I hate this game. I hate the pace. Makes no sense with all these monster games to waste time with it. So I'm passing.
Well,
And I'm going to
you
go.
might have to play him if we get him in the two brains lineup. Just
Oh
watch out
my
for that.
gosh. I may have to. I'm going to fill that spot with the first pick, so you can't do it to me. Last game is also nothing to write home about. So that after-hour slate's going to be like pulling teeth, man.
Yep.
But it's the Spurs and Utah. It's 9 o'clock. Also, Utah by 7, 221 over under, which isn't that bad considering 221. Lyles is still out. Conley, Mitchell, and Azubuike are still out for Utah. 18th and 16th in pace, which is actually better than most people would guess these two teams were. But they are 12th and 3rd, respectively, in defense. So again, you've got the whole thing with Conley out, which always brings the discussion up. Is Ingles or Clarkson a play here? Is it a good play? They can be considered here. Bogdanovich has been smoking hot, shooting the ball. So he is in play for me. Don't particularly want to mess with the Pirtle Gobert matchup. The two bigs, I think they cancel each other out a little bit. DeJounte Murray's been playing terrific. He's their best player, he and DeRozan. But again, Utah doesn't have the best matchup for him. But I don't feel like I want to spend up for him here because he and DeRozan are splitting the key shots on this team. Just, there's so much opportunity in those three big games, and then there's enough value scattered throughout the card. I hate to do that, but I'm going to pass on this game as well. And, so since I won't have a single player on my main slate from these two games, talk about a chalk-free lineup with no anybody in it for the after hours is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I'm with you on this game. It would be most likely Ingles or Bogdanovich sliding in as a last guy in on the main slate. And then I'm planning to pass San Antonio. they are so inconsistent, as we know, Coach. I finally found something that is actually the only consistent thing about San Antonio is some of their players' names. If you're a wing player, you got to start with D. You got DeJounte, DeMar. We know Derek is out, so they replaced him with Devin. And then if you come off the bench, you have to end in the Y sound. We've got Rudy, Patty, Lonnie, and Gorgie.
Oh my gosh.
So that's the takeaway from San Antonio, that you don't have anything else consistent other than that. It is an island game, but on the main slate, I'm looking to pass it.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting after hours card. All right, let's build this sucker.
Let's do it. Two brains are better than one. Play it on FanDuel tonight as a GPP. Follow us on Twitter at DFS CoachTalk in case we have any changes. While you're there, follow the coach at JoeSarvadi, and you can find me at Language Olympic. Coach, kick us off.
Russell Westbrook.
Okay, you got that in as fast as you could.
In tenth of a second.
No hesitation.
Right to the microphone.
All right, let's follow it up with a value play. Assuming Fox is out, I want DeLon Wright again in this fast-paced game. So DeLon Wright at 5,200.
Yeah. Okay, DeLon Wright, 5,200. That's a good price for him for sure. How about if we go with between two guys here? I'm just going to go with our old standby because he never lets us down and he's cheap. I'm going to take Rui.
Okay. Excellent. 5,000, small forward. Let's go with Karis LeVert, 8,400. If Brogdon is out, I think he's a must play.
Yeah, I hope Brogdon's out, though. That would really help for sure. But I like the play. I definitely like the play. I think I'm going to go to make sort of a different style pick here.
Okay.
I want to see what they moved his price to real quickly here just before I take him. I'm going to take $4,900 Moritz Wagner. If he's going to play 35 minutes, he played 41 the last game. Let's keep getting these bargains.
Wow. There's the attempt to block Taj Gibson. I see.
Yes.
I see what you're doing here.
I wanted to get a value guy in that power forward spot before you got crazy.
Wow. Interesting. Okay. Well, let's pay up then at power forward. If you want to block Gibson, let's get Sabonis out there at 10-3. How about that?
The Pacers 10-3. Yep. Ouch. Okay, so we're at 5,000 a man for these last three spots.
Yes, we are.
Is what you're trying to tell me. I got a couple of good deals for us. I'm going to go Robert Williams, 5,400.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure he's going to get the minutes tonight.
Yep, I like that. I like that for sure.
Okay.
Let's go with the let's go ahead and stack out the rest of that Sacramento backcourt with Terrence Davis, 3,800 shooting guard. That's going to give you a decent amount for small forward.
Okay, let me see what that leaves me with. I have a small forward I can fill for around 5,800. Let's make sure that works.
Ooh,
oh my God, I could go back to Mikal Bridges after 80 million points. I tell you though, I'm tempted to take Bogdanovich, but I don't like that game.
I like the price. I'm comfortable with either guy.
Those are the two guys it's between.
Yep. Don't worry. Our financial futures are at stake here. That's all.
I know. I think I'm going to go with Bogey, the other Bogey.
Bojan. He's
shooting the ball lights out right now, and San Antonio does give up threes. So there it is, man. We got $100 to spare in case we need to make a late change.
Westbrook, DeLon Wright, Karis LeVert, Terrence Davis, Bojan Bogdanovich, Rui, Domantas Sabonis, Mo Wagner, and Robert Williams.
Gosh, that sounds
locking
like
it
it's
in
going
for
to
us.
get all the money right
It
there.
might. It might. So it'll be fun to split it with everybody. Looking forward to it. If we have any pivots, we'll try to announce those on Twitter. But last second pivots, obviously, we may not have time for that. So perfect reason to join as a member. DFSCoachTalk.com. We'd love to have you there. We'll invite you into our Discord with an email if you sign up, and then we give out the lineups about 20 minutes before lock. So that concludes our 9-game slate, 2 brains lineup. Really appreciate everybody for tuning in. Had a lot of fun building it. Can't wait to play it. And I'll be back again solo tomorrow for a little shorter
Yeah.
slate. Coach's day off, then we'll be back together on Friday. So on behalf of the coach and the rest of the DFS Coach Talk team, I'm Andrew Hansen. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow as we look to crush it in DFS.